if I have to be celibate and single for some years, I'm okay with that because I'm no longer willing to give myself up to a man who I'm not fully aligned with. It's just not worth it.
Welcome to the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As a leading manifestation advisor with a process that's, radically different from the old New Age model, mine is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and my energetic gifts. I created this podcast to help you expand your subconscious limiting beliefs about the potential of deserving the manifestations you're calling in. Therefore, you're tuning into this podcast series to show your subconscious that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, you've already started the process of manifesting it. Welcome officially to the fall, or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, spring. I hope everybody had an excellent equinox. I felt like it was pretty special. Here in Topanga, we had a lot of overcast to really celebrate it. It's been really warm still, and we're coming off of the crazy fire season, which is early this year, so I imagine we'll see more of it, unfortunately. However, we did have this break of coolness and marine layer, so it really felt inward and that we could celebrate and get into harvest mode. So just wishing everybody a happy autumn. Today's guest I'm so excited for. I've done not quite a few, but I've done a few lives during quarantine when they became extremely popular because of course we are so digital at this point and at home. And this is my favorite so far. So we decided to re-air it into a podcast. This particular guest is really exciting because she was newer to the work. At this point now, she's pretty seasoned. And like many, she just jumped sort of right in. However, because of this guest, we actually had to kind of reconfigure what we sell a la carte because we got to see in real time and we've had this feedback. She started directly with the reprogramming, the daily reprogramming exercise. And because she didn't learn any of the fundamentals of manifestation through how to manifest or doing reparent or shadow, she was kind of like, this isn't really working. I don't get it. Things aren't happening. And it wasn't, of course, until she dug in and learned the process that she was like, oh, wow, I get it. And this is, tests are showing up and this is happening. And of course, like a generator, Gemini, it already started working very quickly for her. So I thought she would be a really cool guest to re-showcase kind of her pitfalls, the tests that are showing up, what she realizes from her old programming. And it's very much her and I discussing in real time her process and me sort of decoding it, but in the most basic, or for the people who have been doing this work for a long time, refreshing in the materials, relearning the materials. So I thought this would be really, really fun. So today's guest is Dani Evans. Dani is a successful model and is the winner of Cycle 6 from America's Next Top Model. Many of us remember her. She's also the founder of Monrowe, a chic unisex hat line. And so today Dani shares her story, how she navigated her unblocking while in quarantine, and how jumping off of a big cliff, her move from Little Rock, Arkansas to New York City, set her on a path of achieving her dreams. So let's all jump into Dani's story and hear a little bit of my decoding it and get into some inspiration. Now to the episode. Hi, how's it going? It's so great to connect with you.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you feeling?
That's a loaded question.
I imagine we're gonna get into it.
we're gonna get all into the nooks and crannies.
Yes.
I'm better. I was sick for 4 weeks and I was insane, but I'm better and I'm slowly getting my feet underneath me. I still don't have my taste and smell is still off.
Oh,
Yeah, I've been told that like that takes a minute to come back, but
yeah.
yeah, other than that, I'm like starting to feel human again. So
Well, you look radiant, like everything's coming back to you.
yeah,
So I'm happy to hear that. Oh
yeah.
man.
I've been doing a lot of self care. So I went and got a facial yesterday,
Good
and I had
job.
acupuncture. So it's like all about me right now.
Good job. I
Yeah,
think that's what this is all about, which I think you know as well.
yes.
Well,
So
I'll let you kick it off.
yes. So I am obsessed with you, but I want those that are tuning in to become familiar with you. So why don't we start by you telling them who you are and like what your specialty is?
Yeah. So anybody who's out there who's tried the whole manifestation thing, back at 17, I was a model and an actress in LA. And I think like any of artists out there in the world, I was trying to figure out how to have some monetary control over my life. So my mom booked a session with the psychic that she's had forever. And the psychic said, go read this book, follow it to a T, and you'll manifest everything you want. And in a way, she was right. So, anyways, long story short, I did. And it was all of that stuff. Think positive, visualize, pretend to be what you want to be in the vortex. I went deep down the rabbit hole. And I realized that it never totally, resulted in really big manifestations. Little things were coming through. However, I did start to have a flow where I was manifesting, but it was never when I was doing those practices. So at 25, I threw everything away and I really started to honor the energetic gifts I have. So I can read energy, I channel, I'm claircognizant, which is so weird because it means I just know things.
Yeah.
And so through that process, I started to realize that manifestation is actually quite different than those old models that have been taught to us, which I call spiritual bypass. It's the think positive. And I started to realize, wow, it has nothing to do with positivity. It has everything to do with stepping into your worth. And each time you do that and you no longer settle for what you did in the past, you create magnetism. And so I started to really watch my patterning and came up with this very specific formula around manifestation that basically encompasses psychology, neuroscience, and my energetic gifts. And that's what I teach. And now the brand has gone on to just like flourish and help many, many people. And we can get into the specifics.
Yeah. So just to give you a little background about myself, like a tad bit, I grew up, or I was programmed religious, right?
Yeah.
But I was also that kid that always had questions like this. I am a believer. I believe in source energy, the Holy Spirit, God. I believe that exists, that spirit exists.
Yeah.
But the formulas and how I was taught just didn't serve me even as a kid. And I find that because I was following the leading of my parents, or more so my mom, I wanted to please her. So I almost mimicked her, if that makes sense. But
Absolutely.
even though it just it wasn't really connecting on a deeper level. Like for me, it's almost like I was taught that you just pray about everything and things will work out. Well, that wasn't my reality, especially as an adult.
Yeah,
and
I've been there as well.
And then I became a professional model and I'd be up for like these huge jobs. And so I would pray about it and nothing would happen. I'd be like, okay, now there's a disconnect because it ran so deep, right? So I always had these questions, like, why is this not really connecting for me the way that I was taught? So I want to say it was in March of this year that I found you, and Lacy, I have no idea how I found you.
I'm so happy you did.
Other than divine intervention, I just came upon your page, and I was like, oh, she's cute. And then I started digging, and I was like, oh, this is like serious. And I bought the DRE.
Yeah.
I did the majority of it like really quickly. And I was like, I don't know if that did anything, but your post resonated with me so loudly that I was telling all my girlfriends about you, right?
Yeah.
And one of my other girlfriends bought, I think, the DRE, or maybe like Unblocked Child, or she bought a pathway, I think. And we were like exchanging notes, like, I don't really know if we're doing it right. And then when I got thrust into like a real deep cocoon, when I got sick, I heard your name. Like I heard Lacy, and I was
wow, from your guides?
Yes. I got myself up off of my Chase lounge and I went to the computer, and that's when I started redoing everything in the DRE. And then I was like, that's when things began to happen for me. Like I started to connect the dots from my childhood and programming and conditioning, and like then at this point, like the hypnosis state really started to work for me. And
Yeah.
I started getting these insane downloads. And then that's when I reached out, got connected to Jessica, and I was like, we got to do this live because it's next level. I want to share you with everybody. So,
well, thank you.
What's so crazy, I think the last thing I said to Jessica was like, you know, I cut this person out of my life that I was toying around with the idea like maybe he could be a partner, but I realized it was me basically repeating patterns and habits. So it was a clear no. The resistance I take as a clear no. So cut that out. And then I was like, I manifested my apartment no, but get into it. It was a test. It was a test.
Oh, I'm so excited to break this down. Well, there's one thing I want to touch on really quickly, because for people who were raised really religious, it's so interesting because I see things through energetics, right? And I think what's so tricky about, which I like respect every religion, every spiritual process, but what I think is so tricky is usually there's a form of dogmaticness of how to practice, and people aren't, they're like not tuning into their energetic way to tap in with source, God, universe, whomever. Right. And so prayer is a really interesting thing to look at. You know, like a lot of us are taught from different forms of religion that you just like get on your knees and pray or whatever the process is. There's many different processes, you know, from Muslim to just, there's so many different ways to pray. But it's so interesting because even with this process, like essentially we're kind of breaking into a different energetic of prayer because it's more of a dance with source, less than like begging or need or asking. It's because what I really believe in, like the foundation of this process, is that everything we're doing in this work is to get back to your true, whole, authentic, worthy self, which every one of us were born as. We were born crystal clear on this planet, and then we ended up receiving shame, pain, programming, and all of that kind of creates this onion shell around us. And so we're not really like super clear source energy. However, the more we like do the work, you know, whether it's through this process or other things of peeling that away, we start to discover our dance with source. And it's much more of a different energetic exchange rather than please, please. It's understanding what your authentic self is deserving of. And I think source, God, universe, whomever is here to align you with everything you're destined to be here for, which is your soul wants, when you start to really get back to that truly authentic place. So it's really cool that you touched on that, because even if somebody comes from a religious background or not, this work is so beneficial and applicable to them as well. And it definitely doesn't go against it. But I think something we all need to reframe is like a different form of prayer is more active, and it's more of an exchange than it is sort of like a begging, a hoping, a wishing, you know. So I love that.
Do everything right or perfect so that things come through. And that just, it never works for me, no matter how much I didn't have sex or didn't, you know, I took away all of the things and I was still jammed. And I realized once I got down to the root of my why, and in all transparency and honesty, like I consider myself a confident person on a subconscious though, Lacy.
Yeah.
The level of low self-worth.
Same. I was always like, very externally, seemingly incredibly confident, you know, outspoken, dynamic, but my subconscious, what it was projecting was the most insecure, low self-worth. And it's so changeable through neuroplasticity, which you're starting to experience.
And
I'm so excited.
In May, I had a really, really tough conversation with my agent in May. Actually, it was via text at first. And I sent her a text and I said, when the world opens back up, I'm no longer willing to go back to working the jobs that I've been doing for the past 14 and a half years.
Amazing.
He was like, understood. But then, of course, I was tested. So these clients that I've been working for would come back and then they would raise the day rate and I would gracefully decline. I cannot accept this. And it's happening rapidly. And I'm sitting here just like shifty eyes, blinking but I have a piece at the end of the day. And I told her when we got on the phone, I said, I am well aware that I am jumping off the cliff with no foreseeable netting underneath me. But what I do know is that the net is going to appear. But I cannot accept these jobs that I've been doing because I'm so much more, I'm worth more than that. I'm bigger than more than that. And for me, taking the work through the trigger and the DRE, I realized that I know when the wound happened and when I put myself in that small box, and it happened 14 years ago when I had a conversation with my agent back then about this expansive career, the vision that I have for myself and my career. And she looked at me and she was like, you'll never have that type of career.
Well, so for anybody listening, that's when a block is imprinted. So anytime you've experienced that in your life, and I'll get more into specifics so people understand what we're talking about, blocks, tests, all the stuff you've been experiencing. So I'll let you finish really quick, and then I'll explain for people who are like, what do they mean?
Perfect. Yeah, so when she said that to me, it pierced me, like it physically hurt, even though they were words. Like I felt heartbroken. And I remember leaving out of my agency at that time. I held myself together in front of her. I walked out of that agency and I was hysterical. Like I was sobbing, like my soul was hurt. And I got myself in that small box that was created for me 14 years ago. And I played nice. I played their game that they wanted me to play. I didn't make any fuss. I didn't make a noise. And at 35 years old, it's like I woke up after starting the process of your work. And I'm like, no, this is not amazing. This is not my best. And this is like, I'm worth so much more than this. And it's not even an egoic thing. Like I know that I've been playing myself small for 14 years. I know that I've been playing the game that they set up for me. I know coming into this, leaving my home in Little Rock, Arkansas, moving to New York City by myself, I knew what I was deserving of and what I was worthy of. But it's like they told me, no, that's not going to be your destiny. This is going to be your destiny. And I said, okay. Until now, and I'm like, I'm not playing that game anymore. So.
This is so important. So I want to break down for anybody listening so that you guys understand. I made the weird mistake when I started this of kind of creating our own language around
it's great though.
And it's only because I was always trying to hit the energetic note, kind of like a music note, where it's like, well, the best way to describe energetically what's happening is, test or whatever. So for anybody who's not familiar, everything that Dani's talking about, the old form of manifestation, that's what we talked about before, the think positive, the visualize, pretend to be what you want to be. I started to realize that there's actually 3 really important steps to manifestation that aren't quite those. So where they say think positive, it's actually not the case. It's all about, like I said before, stepping into your worth and your deservingness. That actually creates the law of attraction, the pull towards you. So kind of to encompass this process, the way that I started to realize it's spiritual, yes, but it's actually really easy step-by-step psychology and neuroscience. So basically exactly what you're alluding to, Dani, from the ages of 0 to 7, whatever is imprinted into us, whatever we experience, may it be from our community, our family, our peers, media, everything we take in, we start to create either high self-worth or low self-worth. So whether we are worth what we're wanting or not worth what we're wanting in ratio to all of the aspects we're calling into our life. So we're actually not manifesting from our thoughts in theory. We're manifesting from those subconscious loops that are projecting out that were imprinted. And we don't know that. So that's when, like Dani and I are talking about, we're like, on the outside, we're so confident in our conscious mind. However, when you start to do, this certain hypnosis process that I created, and you start to get down there, you realize, oh, what I'm projecting in ratio to what I want is not matching up, and there's not self-worth there. So it's really whatever we're projecting from our subconscious, we're receiving back. Where we experienced high self-worth in ratio to what we're calling in, we're manifesting very simply and quickly. What we're projecting out that's low self-worth in ratio to what we're calling in, so that you had that shame hit you, 14 years ago in your brain. So literally it imprinted in your subconscious, you'll never have this big career that your soul knows it's on the planet to have. So it created a block. And you've been then projecting that and receiving jobs that match that small box. So it's okay though, because you're aware now, and you're starting to do things correctly. So it'll all start to turn around. So there's super hope in everything. So that's one aspect. It's that we're not manifesting from our thoughts. It's our subconscious. So I always give this great example where I'm like, you can be positive until the cows come home, but a really, really good indicator that positivity is not what manifests is if you look at, unfortunately, narcissists. I'm sure in New York, like I know in LA, many people that are like kind of badass narcissists manifest very big things.
And you're looking at them like, what the F? How is
totally?
But it makes sense once you start once you understand your work and the psychology behind it, it really makes sense why certain people are just really good at manifesting super quickly. So for me, like, I'm having to go back and unlearn. It's a lot of unlearning, and a lot of reprogramming. So that situation that happened 14 years ago, what I did was I had the me now that I am, like the understanding and awareness that I have now. I walked into the room 14 years ago with my younger self, and I reprogrammed that. I had a conversation with the agent that spoke that to me, and I corrected her. I understand that you don't see that for my life, but like I will have that big career, and because we do not align, that I'm asking to be out of my contract so I can go elsewhere where someone is aligned with the vision that I have for my life and my career. And we walk out of that agency, and the contract is null and void, and everything happens differently in my life. So it's been a lot of that, and it's been a 4-week. I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but I would say during those 4 weeks that I was sick, it's really when I allow myself to like get into the nooks and crannies of everything that's been going on in my life. And absolutely everything makes sense. Like even the relationships that I was in. But anyway, at the end of the day, like the work is so worth it. And I just feel like I understand now why I was receiving certain behavior like as acceptable, because of like the family that I grew up in and what I saw in my own household. And then like subconsciously, I'm feeling like, one, this is just how relationships are. And two, I just need to work extra hard for them to see my point and for them to respect my boundaries. And now I'm like, absolutely not. Like we're not in alignment. If you can't respect my core values, you can call me extra and whatever it's necessary, but we're not doing this. And it's not going to be a back. I don't even need closure. I'm giving myself the own closure. The closure is we're not in alignment. You're not my person, Totally. And honestly, if I have to be celibate and single for some years, I'm okay with that, because I'm no longer willing to give myself to a man who I'm not fully aligned with. It's just not worth it.
Incredible. So that's another thing I want to break down for anybody listening. So that all plays into the worth aspect. So the 3 parts of manifestation that we discovered, we talked about thoughts don't create our reality. It's our subconscious imprintation that we're projecting out, receiving back, that as we know that you're doing the work, I've done a ton of it, is changeable through neuroplasticity, because our brains, we discovered 20 years ago that they're plastic and they're constantly changing. And through this process of hypnosis that I created, you can actually get back down to those key memories and you can literally shift them, because when you're in a hypnotic state, your subconscious comes forward and your conscious mind goes backwards. So your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. So as you're starting to create this new story, you're overriding the old loops. And it takes reinforcement in time, such as you're doing. And we're actually creating a whole new process with a neuroscientist and psychologist that we brought on. We're going to be launching in November an even more targeted daily reprogramming exercise with Dr. Tara. We're so excited. So that's the one aspect we've covered. And then what you're talking about, you've mentioned tests and that you're not settling anymore. Those are 2 really important key components that go together in that 3-part process. They're kind of like the 3rd step. And so what I started to realize when I was doing manifestation, I would always start to realize that when I was getting closer to something that I was manifesting, say a partnership, because I did the whole LA doormat thing for a very long time, slept with the wrong people.
I did the New York
crazy.
Doormat thing. It's all good.
All good. A lot of us have been there. But I started to realize when I got to the place where you are, and I was like, no more. I'm worth more than this. I deserve. Because again, it was my old programming that I picked up in childhood that was just playing out and repeating itself. It's low self-worth that I picked up from my mom. And so when I went, no, like my story will be different, just as you're doing in your career, I realized they started to get tested. So I would call in a partner and it would be like so much of the list, but they were emotionally unavailable. And it gets so hard because I was like, oh my God, it's everything I want on paper. Maybe it'll change. And I had to go, no.
The emotionally unavailable and the avoidance, that's what I attract, because that's my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
tend to. Mom or dad.
Hard no. It is a
hard no. And I promise you, I mean, there's a step-by-step process. So anybody who's interested in this, we have how to manifest. And then we suggest doing inner child, then we do shadow, and then the daily reprogramming. But the How to Manifest teaches you, and it talks more about what this means, the testing. So anybody, if you're sitting there thinking about your manifestation process, when you've manifested big, very kismet things, I bet if you look back, you'll realize the universe dangled a test in front of you. And the test was, it was energetically testing to see if you would settle for old, low self-worth behavior again. So for you, like, I want to hear more about the apartment, because that'll really clearly probably outline this to people, where, you know, it's like everything on your list, but...
So I got to give you a little backstory before we actually get into the apartment. So me and my ex broke up a year ago this month. He's an amazing, amazing man. We're actually really good friends and still business partners to this day. But we both agree it was like an amicable breakup. We both agree we're better as friends and business partners than lovers. So that's great. He's so magnetic and amazing. So being with him, we were together for 6 years. We lived together for 4 years. Amazing condos, and I ended up feeling, and I didn't realize this until we broke up and I got my own space. Now, mind you, prior to meeting him, I always had my own space, beautiful areas in New York. But being with him, you know, living with him for those 4 years, I forgot my whole capability to manifest and my worth, right? Wow. Being in his beautiful condos, like marble bathrooms and just like insane like it was next level, right? So when we broke up, I was feeling very low self-worth, like, well, that life was great, but it's over. All this craziness, right? Like, I'll never be able to afford those types of condos, like all this crazy stuff. So I'm in my current apartment and it's cute. It's like on the East River, a balcony. I mean, if anyone saw where I live, they'd be like, girl, you are psychotic. This apartment is beautiful. Okay. But for me,
when they're living with like 5 roommates and, you know, Dumbo, they're like, dude.
Right, you know, like the apartment it's great. It's stunning. Like I have a friend that just moved here from my hometown and he's living in my space right now, and he's like, I would actually live for the rest of my life. You know, it's a beautiful space. But for me and what I know I can call in, I can do better, Lacy. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is since being sick, so this was a month ago, and I'm like, I don't want to live in this apartment anymore. My lease is coming to an end. Like, I want to find a new space. Made the list. I also want a marble bathroom, right? Like, I miss my marble bathroom.
I deserve it.
So I'm making the list, like washer and dryer, marble bathroom. I want a shower, glass encasing. I don't want the shower curtain. Like, I was specific. Real hardwood floors, like all of the things. And I want another balcony. Oh, gold fixtures. I was very specific, gold fixtures.
I love the detail. I love it.
Lacy. Oh my God. Everything was in this apartment. Reached out to the realtor. It's a go. She's like, oh, we don't do in-person showings because of COVID-19. Totally understandable. She sent me a virtual tour. Everything is beautiful. And I was literally watching the tour like, oh my God, I manifested this. A marble bathroom, everything, Lacy. Gold fixtures in the kitchen. I was like, this is my apartment. Put the money down, sign the lease, boom. Lacy, I went to the apartment for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, this is not my apartment. The top of the balcony window is busted open, held together by duct tape.
What?
And they hid it during the virtual tour by like lowering the shade a little bit. And then like when you get into the nooks and crannies, like it's not an apartment that I would have ever accepted if I went in person to look at the apartment. It's a luxury apartment. But I stood in the middle of the apartment, and all of a sudden this feeling rushed over me. And I was like, this apartment is indicative of what my life has been and what I have called in, be it with a relationship, in my career. So on the outside, to the naked eye, it looks stunning. It looks so appealing. But then when you get in it and you pull up the shades and you get into the nooks and crannies, you're like, actually, this is not what I want. But then I found myself, I did that little dance for a minute. Like, I reached out to management and they were non-responsive, right? So then I was like, in my mind, like, oh, if I apply more pressure, then maybe I'll get a response. Are you going to fix the window? And then I was like, you know what? I have to get my attorneys involved. And then I was like, I'm going to tell my attorney that I want to be in the same building, but I want now a 2-bedroom. And I was like, Danielle, stop.
Mm-hmm.
This is not your apartment. This unit is not your apartment. And do you really want to be associated with a management company that is negligent and that would rent you a busted out window in an apartment? And the answer is no, you're deserving of better than that. So it's like, I realized that this apartment is a test, even though it's everything on the list, but it's not my apartment.
Yep. Okay, there's so many good things to break down in this for people.
Break it down, girlfriend.
I gotta tell, so people listening, there's like really great teachings and highlights in this. So number one, with your ex, amazing man and all of that, let's call him an expander for you. Because he was a total, like you, especially lifestyle expander, right? So for anybody listening, that's the second part. So we covered that you're projecting from your subconscious. That's what you're manifesting. You're trying to unblock those things, right? That's the first. The third was not settling. You'll be tested, for old low self-worth stuff. So that's the third part. The second part is, so in old manifestation processes, they always talk about, they're like, visualize everything you want. And I don't know about you guys, but I would visualize till I was blue in the face. And I always give the funny joke. Many people have heard this before. Yeah, I would be like waitressing at the Laugh Factory on Sunset and visualizing my home in Malibu, but making like $300 a week. And my home in Malibu was not gonna make it.
Right.
So simple, like neuroscience behind that. When we are visualizing, which is actually a fine practice and it's great, but if your subconscious has never seen to believe that what you want is possible or accessible to you, it's like no, it's not happening, because it literally is like, that's impossible. It's the reptilian brain. So you have to actually go out and find what I call expanders. And so it's just like very simple psychology. When you, through osmosis, when you're spending time with these people, when you are starting to engage with them, whether it's on social media, you have to actually show your brain that what they have, a version of what you want is possible. You have to see to believe. Mm-hmm. So for example, for me back then, wanting this Malibu home with like a sauna and an infinity pool and all, whatever it was that I wanted, I didn't even know anybody that had that. So my brain, I'm like a small town in, Central California with a dad that's a roper. Like never seen that before. But it's so interesting, through osmosis, through meeting people and finding expanders. Now the home that I have in Topanga that I bought, for instance, has everything that I've ever wanted. It's actually more ideal, but it's still in the same energetic compartment of what I wanted in Malibu, but I had to go and find expanders. So expanders are people that you identify with that come from or have a very similar background to where you currently are now, and they've gone on to manifest what you're looking for. So you can find those on social media, you can find those in person. It's more effective or it's faster in person. So you can actually show your brain what's possible, and that's what he was for you. Yeah. So living in those different environments, you got to see, this is possible, even though it sounds like your self-worth was kind of shrinking in the sense that you were like, he can have this, but I can't.
Yes.
Which is what you're reprogramming, see? And so that's one thing I want to talk about in what you said. And then the second that's so interesting, and I have one question for you. This person that you've been dating, that you're like, no more, that no more process, letting them go, how close was that to this place coming through, this test place?
Neck and neck.
Yeah. So anytime you jump off of a cliff, like, and I call that what you're doing with your current agent, and you're telling them like,
right,
this is scary, I'm not going to make money, but I'm saying no to all of these old jobs. That's jumping off of a cliff. But the beautiful thing is you're reprogramming your subconscious, you're expanding during this time, you're doing everything you need to create that net. So when you jump off of a cliff or you walk through fear, letting go of that old dating experience, telling your current management, you're like, I'm not settling for these jobs anymore. That's called passing tests, but also jumping off of a cliff. And it creates magnetism because you're communicating to source, the universe, God. You're like, I'm no longer settling. And not settling is what really creates that magnetic force.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
And this is what's so exciting. When tests start to come through, which you now know what this current place is a test, the closer you are, the more you're growing your self-worth. So the lower your self-worth is, the more obvious the tests will be. Right. And tests show up in opportunities. It could be like the first places you were looking at, like, had nothing on your list. It was so obvious. Maybe they were the right location or the right price. But the more your self-worth is growing, the closer your self-worth aligns with the self-worth of what you're calling in, the tests start to become, I don't know what to call them, but they're so hard to pinpoint that it could be a test. And your only downfall was that you didn't go to it in person to really see, because you would have known and you would have been able to pass it. You would have been like, this is a test. But it's so interesting because it really shows energetically where you're at. And what I mean by this, it's a really good thing. Number one, you're a very good manifester because down to the gold fixtures, everything, you know, like so specific, you're starting to make it happen. But it's interesting because you can always tell based on what's showing up in your life how much you're growing through this process. So you can see how much your subconscious is changing, how much you're expanding because of what's presenting. And so even though this place has come through, it's a headache, of course, you're trying to get out of it and stuff, but it is so close to what you wanted. And again, you didn't really technically not pass it because you didn't get to see it. And you're technically passing it now by being like, no, my layers are involved, I'm getting rid of this. But it's also very much a mirror for how much you've grown. So the place is like almost what you want. It's so close to what you're calling in that it actually shows that a lot of your manifestations, I'll guarantee you, even in jobs, work you're calling in, and suitors that'll start to come through are going to be up leveled now if you really stay this course of unblocking, expanding, and passing the test. So you have to get out of this apartment.
That's non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. And the two key things for you right now, because you're so close to many things, jobs, and when you're ready to open up to dating again, you're so close that the two most important non-negotiables are to keep expanding. So what I call fragment expanders. So like in dating, if you start to look in your subconscious, you're doing unblock love and you're looking through it and you're like, wow, the person I'm calling in, I want them to have A, B, C, and D. Amazing communication, super dedicated. I can be myself with them, maybe spiritual, like whatever those things are that are non-negotiables for you. When you're looking at it in the subconscious state and that hypnotic state, you know, through one of the hypnosises, and you go, oh my gosh, I actually don't believe on a subconscious level that I can have someone who deeply wants to commit, for example. You would have to go out and find what I call fragment expanders. So maybe you have relationships you've seen, you know, through people around you that have everything but good commitment. Maybe he or she's cheating all the time or whatever. You just need to go find that fragment expansion of the relationship that encompasses sort of what you want, but it's like the deepest commitment. And you really identify with one of the people in the couple, like in the partnership. So right now, your key things are to find all the fragment expanders you need: career for this next level of jobs you're calling in, relationship, And definitely, it sounds like to me, and just energetically, I'm picking up that you're expanded enough in home. Like, you don't need more of that. You just have to pass the test. Yeah. You're so close. But that's really where you're at right now. Expansion, unblocking. Anything that's coming up. And the craziest thing that people don't realize that I started to read through energetics, love and money are always connected. Always.
Yeah. Can you go into a deeper explanation about that? Because I've heard you say that before, I think on one of your podcasts. And I was like, oh shit, there's like some truths to that. But I want you to break it down like on a deeper level.
Yes. So here's just a good example to look at. When you tell me time frame wise, when you started to first, when you communicated to your current management or agent that you're like, no more, I'm not taking these type of jobs. Timeline of when you told this ex relationship or this relationship you've been having, no more. And timeline of the tests that started coming through with the jobs where they're like similar echelon, but more money. Tell me those time frames and then I'll show you how they're so connected.
Got it. So the conversation that I had with my manager, that happened on Friday, let's say 2 weeks ago. The guy dating is like too big of a term, but the guy that I was like chit-chatting with, that happened on, let's say, that following Wednesday. And then the apartment happened in between them. So they were literally, Lacy backed, it was in threes. Yeah. Within the matter of 2 weeks, it was back to back to back. And this was just 2 weeks ago.
Oh, this is so fun because it's when you're starting to play with magic. Like you're seeing your witchy powers, right? You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yes. I'm like, what? I literally am like, what the F is going on right now in my life? I have peace because I know that my manifestations are orbiting me. I feel it. It's frustrating. Yeah. But I vacillate between frustration and like the conversation with my manager, it wasn't frustrating. It was like, I need to just speak my truth and get this off my chest so that you know where my head is at and that I initiate my work. With the guy, it was very much like, I'm not doing this. Like, I am goodbye. And with the apartment, though, the apartment is frustrating because I'm like, I am tired.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. So this is such a good, clear example. So apartment is connected to the money piece. So whenever I say money, energetically, getting into energetics, that's what manifestation is. Money is anything to do with security. So it can be apartment, it can be job, career, it can be like physical money. So those two are connected. And then love is the dating experience, like your exchange with partnership. So right now you're currently being like, fuck no.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not settling.
All capital letters.
Yep, all caps. You're like, I'm really stepping into my true authentic self and I'm not going to settle for anything beyond that because I have been. And you know how uncomfortable it's been for so long. And you're ready for the real deal. You're ready for the real deal where you live. You're ready for the real deal in your partnership and you're certainly ready for it in your career. So it's not crazy that you're being tested with all of them. So I imagine too, like dating wise, you're going to start to have tests. Like when you're allowed to be on the streets again, like when you're out and about again, or you're on an app or whatever, it's going to be identical to the ones you're receiving in jobs right now. It's going to be like seemingly the list, kind of how the opportunities are more money and you're like, no. So that's a clear example of how one is tested. So initially it was just jobs coming through being like, dingling carrot, do you need a job right now? And you're like, no. And then it was a similar job, but it's more money. And you're like, no. Yep. That's exactly the series of how you'll be tested. And then eventually they're going to start to be kind of hard to identify if they're a test, just like your apartment. So it shows that your worth is growing in love and money. So when it starts to come to relationships, the test will be similar unless you've grown your subconscious and expansion so much, it'll just go straight to that place where it's hard to recognize. And once you get to that place, it's kind of like it's all building, the hard to recognize place, and you pass that, it's just going to be totally flowy. You're going to be like, got it. A big job's going to come through. So you're doing everything perfectly. You just have to keep expanding and unblocking.
Got it.
You're on the perfect. Like, I cannot wait for you to write in to tell us what you manifest during this time.
This is exciting because I know in my gut, Susanna said that I am clairvoyant, and I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, you basically, like, spirit deals with you in like visions or dreams, like it's like you feel it, and it's so true since a kid. Like, what I can say is that every man that I have attracted, whether I committed to these men or not, I knew it was a no.
Yeah.
And I still proceeded forward. And where I am right now in my life, it's not even I think or I feel. I am done with that. It's such a fine-tuned sensitivity where I can meet a guy and my girlfriends would be like, this is it. And I'm like, no, not.
Oh, this is my favorite time.
Always close my eyes to it and be like, Danielle, you're being dramatic. You're being like, I would literally downplay myself.
Yeah.
And during this season of my life, Lacy, I'm like, no, like, get back into that lane where you know in your gut the moment that you meet him, they're like, yeah, he's cute, he's great, he's got good conversation. I don't care. There's tons of guys they're cute and great, have great conversation.
Totally.
So you mentioned you were doing a podcast, I think it was with Jenna, the human design.
Yeah.
You were saying that you get a feeling on your tongue and you get like a smell. For me, I feel it in my gut. Like, I feel that sensation right there where it's like a no, or it is like fiery, like, yes, proceed forward with anything. And I always know with guys, it's like a no. Yeah. And I still try to like force something, and it never works out in my advantage. And so
it's just old patterning. That's all it is. Old subconscious patterning. And for anybody listening, I think this is so important to empower you. Everyone is psychic. We are all intuitive beings. Even like simple science, if you break it down to an animal, animals have to live off their instincts. We're obviously so domesticated that we no longer have to survive off of those. And it's like a whole spiritual thing I can get into, but I think we're also so programmed to no longer listen to our intuition. But everybody is, and it behooves all of us, just like Dani's saying, and I know, to start to learn your patterning when you know hell yes, hell no. Because that's how you pass a test. Hell yes or hell no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Like, period.
Yeah, and so that's what and I learned that from you, actually. And that's something that I told the guy. I was just like, this is just not, it just doesn't behoove me to like keep going forward. And I was like, if it's not a flow, I listen to the resistance now in my life with anything, whether it's career, this apartment, the resistance of trying to get management on the phone and like,
totally,
and I was like, resistance for me now means no, it's a complete stop. It's a dead end. And he was like, I would still like to be friends. And I was like, no, that's me playing myself. Like, I don't know. I'm just not there in my life anymore, Lacy. And it's been such a speedy thing. And like, it's only been a month since like getting sick and like where I am right now. But getting sick really cocooned me in such a way where it was like, then you'll wake up, babe. Yeah. Like, your life is passing by and you are missing your assignment because you're just like so deeply into this programming of like your childhood and your conditioning, or how people are going to judge you and like, oh, you're being harsh and mean to him. I don't care. Like, and I'm not harsh and mean, but I'm no longer abandoning myself to keep in a relationship with somebody.
That's the key takeaway is, and especially as women, many, and like, we're in a Western culture, but you can't imagine like all over the world, we are so programmed to stay small, to stay the nice girl, then whatever, whomever's identifying as a woman, like there's a lot of programming there. And your authentic self isn't like that, like when we came onto the planet. Before all of this programming may have been through religion, or, like what can create shame, or through what a good person is, or what a beautiful person is, or whatever. Really, it's all about starting to learn, who am I really? And it's not ego, just like you're saying. It's who is my authentic essence? Who am I truly? And when we start to get back into that place and only come from deservingness, from that place and expansion, we connect with everything, every single thing. And I want to share with everybody that I think this is such an important message. Anybody can manifest what they want in their life. I've seen the craziest stuff. And I give this example. There was this one woman I worked with who really felt like she was broken. She couldn't manifest anything. And she had a lot of body image issues, namely like straight up through media, because she didn't have the type of body that media projected was like the right body to be loved. And then grew up like in a very affluent area, yada, yada, yada. She had never had a real relationship. And I always say this, I'm like, for one person manifesting on the planet, 10 people are waiting to connect with you with your manifestation, because I don't believe in the one. I believe we always keep growing, and if we grow with the people we're with, we'll stay connected. If we don't, we're not meant to stay connected.
I agree.
Right? Like that's what true spiritual consciousness and growth is. So with this particular woman, she was like, I'm broken. I won't have a relationship. I've never had one. I think she was 27. And that's when I used to take clients, and I was like, I need you to go out and find an expander, not even fragment. Like I want the whole picture. She has to look just like you, like exact same body. She has to come from, because a lot of our blocks come from what we were told is important growing up. And for her, like in her certain religion and everything, it was all about education, wealth, and beauty. And so for her, I was like, they have to be educated, they have to be wealthy, they have to look just like you, and they have to be in the most dynamic, loving partnership. And she ended up finding it with a girl at work, same body, very similar educational background, same level of wealth. And when she finally saw that, she was like, oh, well, she can have that, I can too. Yeah. 2 weeks later, she manifested her partner. Anybody can manifest. It really is getting back to your true, authentic, worthy, whole self, which you're actively doing right now. And it's like, to me, it's like eating a cake. It makes me so happy.
I love this.
So and we all are capable of that.
I did the human design. I'm going to do a further reading with Jenna, but I just did the test to figure out what I am, and I'm a generator.
So lucky. They're the most magnetic, I think, and then they have the most energy. It's like the luckiest thing.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm gonna go deeper and do like a full-blown reading. But I'm just like, I have this excitement. I fluctuate. It's like I'm excited. I'm also just kind of like, okay, what's going on, universe? Like, where is it? When's it coming through? But I know
it's all happening. I can tell you, like, straight up energetically, it's all orbiting you right now, because you're making so many shifts at once.
I've always felt like, before I had the lingo, way before I met you, I've always had this obsession or been drawn to Will and Jada. Like, I didn't.
Me too. I have the chills. They're like the most expansive couple on the planet.
They are. I think so too. And I never care what anyone has to say about them. For me personally, now that I have the lingo, they are my expanders. And for me, I just feel like they've been married for so long, and they're so like, they let you know what they want the public to know.
The red table, most brilliant thing on the planet.
Brilliant. And I just feel like they are my expanders when it comes to relationship at the end of the day. Like the way that they are transparent with one another, they're truly committed. And even how Jada has said, like, I realize Will is not responsible for my happiness. Like, I have to find my own happiness. The bits that they let us into, for me, I'm like, that's ideal. You know?
I love it. That's your perfect expanders right now too. And they're like massive also financial expanders. Like talk about two incredibly successfully financial people together and couples. So that's a great example for anybody tuning in. I don't know if you know them, you may not.
I don't know.
Yeah, so it goes to show you don't have to know them. They can be somebody on social media or the public eye, but they're such a fantastic couple for expansion because they let you into their world through the red table. I mean, if everybody had that, we would have such quick expanders, but you get to see through their trials and tribulations. Like, I don't know if you identify with Jada, but she had that fantastic episode on her dad and how with addiction and he was never totally like available and emotionally available. So it shows you, you're like, well, look at her career and look at her marriage. Like, if she can have it, I can too.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You know, I mean, they have just expansion everywhere. I watch it and I'm like, this is everything I want.
Yeah. Even the way they handle their kids, because I've said for many years now that our parents are merely funnels to bring us into the world. They're not, our parents are not like after a certain age, your parents do not have parental authority over your life and what you do and where you live. And like, it's just, I feel like they just get it because they've even said like, our kids are borrowed. Like, we just are here to, you know, raise them after a certain age, and then they're their own. They're their own people. Even now, they're their own people. And I love how they let Willow shave her head and like self-expression. It all makes so much sense to me. And it's an inspiration. So
I agree. What's your sign?
I'm a Gemini.
Oh, dude, you have it all going for you. They're the second biggest manifestors. So you're good. You're on this. So the most exciting piece, and like not to like toot my horn because it's the process that we have, but now you have the tools. The world's your oyster. You literally have everything going for you. You know, like now you finally have the tools and you have the step by step, and you're going to find your own process around it of your patterning and what works for you and how to identify your test. But it's like it's all happening, and it's so awesome and so magical. I'm so excited for you. I cannot wait for the email to come through where you're like, the apartment, the crazy job I never thought I could get that's going to get all the other jobs, and then the partnership.
Yeah, I'm so glad we connected.
Me too. I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful too. And, you know, it's really cool to see your journey through this work, because a lot of people will discover the brand and not know how to engage with it correctly. And so they'll be like, I'm just going to try this one thing. And, you know, they're like, it's not working. But that's why I always like to tell people, if you're interested in this work, you have to start with how to manifest and do inner child and shadow, because it actually gives you the tools. It's literally the quickest, easiest step-by-step process of everything we talked about here of how to manifest. And then you go and you do the inner child, which is like a workshop that takes you through your childhood to look at each phase and unblock it. And then you go into your shadow, which is where the real magnetism is, pertaining to work and love, like career and love, because what we don't own owns us. So like people will come to me and they'll be like, I want this certain amount of social following, or I want my business to be doing X, Y, and Z, or at my job, like in corporate, I want to go to the next level. And I'm like, where are you hiding? Because where you're hiding, you're projecting out, don't look at me, I don't want you, stay back subconsciously. So you have to integrate all of that shadow in order to be like, no, look at me, I want it, come my way. And so those three are the key. If anybody gets really excited about this work, you do those to find the success that you're just now having, Dani, like the momentum.
Yeah. And it's not, I want people also to know it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. Like
emotionally, it's not easy.
No, at all. Like one of my girlfriends were talking and she was like, I'm taking the day off. And I was like, take the day off.
Take care of yourself.
You have to, because you go so deep. And I do feel like that's what really stops a lot of people from even getting into therapy. I used to do talk therapy, but talk therapy just doesn't resonate with me anymore. Like your work has just been like so expansive for me. And I'm not saying that because we're doing a live, like the tools that you provide and the understanding and the clarity that you gift us with to then go in and like actually do the work and like following the guidance of like when we're in hypnosis has been so profound, but you do have to take care of yourself. And like for me, like yesterday, I did a whole self-care day. Like I did a facial for 2 hours and then acupuncture. And it's crazy because while I was being needled on the table, like tears were just streaming. Like I feel like certain parts of my back when he needles, it's just like an insane release.
Totally.
And, like, everything is just like I'm just on the table.
I'm so happy you were getting, because the release is so important. And exactly what you're talking about, Dani. Like we'll get the feedback a lot from people. They'll be like, when they do how to manifest inner child and shadow, which we call the basics bundle, when they do that, they'll be like, it's like 10 years of therapy at once. So it's really intense for people. And honestly, like I couldn't think of a better time, especially if you're single and like you're not a mom that's, full-time with your child right now or working from home or a dad, but it's really important that you carve out that space for true self-care, even if it's like an Epsom salt bath every night, just feeling your feelings, like have that space. And then once you're into the work, like 3 months in, it's like super speed and easy and not heavy as much anymore. But the first beginning, you're like, am I going to get through this?
This is hard. What have I signed myself up to, and how do I redo it? It's
totally. And we always say too, if you have a therapist, like it's so smart to do this alongside, or a support group, or a friend who can really support you through it as well. But I'm the type of person, I don't know if you're like this, but I'm like, I just want what I want. So I'm like going to go all in and speed up the process to connect with my manifestation.
Yeah. I had one of my girlfriends, she messaged me the other day and she was like, dude, I feel like you're sprinting through this, because like I sent her a voice note of like a realization that came through, and I was like, oh my God, listen to this. And I was like through the voice note, and she's like, dude, this is so profound. And she's like, how did you come to this realization? I was like, it's Lacy's work, dude. It's
the subconscious. Your subconscious is finally speaking to you and telling you like, this is what's in your way. This is what you need to see to believe more. And this is where you can't settle anymore. And like once you start to dance with that, and that's kind of what we talked about in the beginning, like prayer is so much more of a dance and an energetic exchange. And if you look at like indigenous cultures, prayer or communicating with like the gods or whomever, that it was active, it was through dance, it was through ritual, you know, it was through ceremony. And so it's like, I think a lot of us don't realize that when we get to the context of prayer, that it's just sort of asking and hoping or wishing, you know, or feeling shameful, like guilt, and that you shouldn't have what you want. I don't think that that's the true act of prayer. I think it's finding your own dance with communicating with source is so, so important.
Awesome. So where can people find you?
Yes. So first and foremost, we have what's called the Pathway membership, and that includes every one of the workshops. So it's the first 3 that we tell everybody to do, the daily reprogramming exercise. We have love in there, how to manifest money, and it has many of our other workshops. And plus, once a month, we do what's called supported. So it's basically where people can ask in their questions, and we take the most frequently asked questions and we answer them. So it's a class. So that's the Pathway. It's the most affordable, accessible. You get everything in it. And then you can do a la carte. So you can try with the basics bundle, which is how to manifest in your child's shadow, the daily reprogramming exercise. That's kind of what you started with. And you're like, is this working? I don't know if I'm doing this right. So always start with the basic bundle. And then even better, if you're watching this and you're like, I just have questions. The really cool thing we launched this month that I got so excited about, it was actually a survey we sent out, and somebody suggested it would be awesome for $25 if somebody could write in and ask any question they're having in their practice and receive the answer back, because we have 4 coaches that you can work with, because I don't take clients anymore. And so it's been the most successful thing. So they send you back a voice note that's very detailed based on your question, where they read the energetics of what's happening with you. They tell you exactly what you need to do and which work you need to do. So it's so powerful.
That's dope.
It's awesome. So there's that. And then, of course, the expanded podcast. And the first one to start with, if you're like, I just want to learn about this process, it's called Manifestation 101. It's the best episode to start with. And then any of the episodes that are titled Explained. And you'll be like, oh, okay, I get this more. I understand what they were talking about a little bit more.
Guys, I'm telling you, I would definitely start with the podcast. Lacy's work works. Like, I just want to personally thank you, because I feel like you've probably gotten your ass handed to you in order to like learn this process, because it works.
My way of learning in life is going through every rock bottom possible in love, money, even me. I've been trying to get pregnant for the last 5 years. It's like, do you think this is going to be different? You're going to go through the rock bottom of fertility to see how this works.
Because I feel like you're such an amazing, you're a projector, right? You're human design.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And I just want to thank you for going through the process and not abandoning yourself in efforts to then turn around and teach us, because it's, for me, like, this work has been so freeing and liberating and mind-blowing and expansive for me. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, thank you. I'm so proud you're doing it. And that's like what makes me the happiest, is just that you're doing it, you're seeing the shifts, you're feeling the momentum, and that you definitely have to email us.
Thank you,
so
babe.
Nice to talk to you, Dani. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Have an awesome day ahead, babe.
You too. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the Pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ plus community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.